Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. Just before Zombies Chronicles came out, myself and a bunch of other Zombies YouTubers went to Treyarch Studios and played the maps for the first time, and something that every single one of us that went commented on at the time was the sound in the maps. Zombies Chronicles sounds so damn good. The audio design is fantastic, and I figured it would be a cool idea to sit down today with a member of the Treyarch design team, Kevin Sherwood, who's one of the senior audio designers, and basically talk a little bit more about that very topic. From the small things like the rustling of the leaves and the verdant turf as you're walking through Shangri-La, that's a Pokemon pun, through to the, I suppose, more obvious things like the round change music that they've modified from the past, brought into the future, updated, enhanced, etc. So that's the conversation I'm going to be having in this video. It's going to be a fairly long interview with Kevin Sherwood, but there are two things I need to talk about before I jump into it. First of all, if you'd like me to do this with a further Zombies dev in the future, so maybe someone from the animations team, and I could talk to them about the things like, for example, on a moon when you're putting on the helmet, that new animation is awesome, stuff like that. I would be more than happy to explore with a further Treyarch dev if you guys were interested in that, so let me know on that in the comment section down below. But also, okay, you have the opportunity to actually win a code for Chronicles today. All you've got to do is head in the description down below to my Twitter, okay, twitter.com/MrRoflWaffles, and on there's a tweet. You can retweet it and follow me, and that enters you into the giveaway. Also, ideally, if you could reply to the tweet with your platform of choice and your region as well, so Europe or North America and PS4, Xbox, etc. That would really help me figure out who needs which codes. I'll be picking someone randomly that follows and retweets, and that'll give you a Chronicles code because it's out on Xbox now, it's out on PC now, so it's out on all the platforms. Everyone should be enjoying these damn maps because they're just wonderful, so go retweet that, and without further ado, enjoy the rest of the interview.
Your name's Pat, right?
That's the one. Tell me, Kevin, what dev was like back during like 2009 World at War, what kind of tools you had available to you, what kind of limits were in place specifically as well, that might be lifted now, that you might have new access to new things now?
World at War is just post CoD 3, and we changed over to the IW engine at the time, and so there was a bunch of things technically that we wanted to change to do what we wanted to do, and channel count was probably the biggest one. I think we went from, I think it was 16 up to, almost 100 at that point. I can't remember what the change was, but it was a significant amount of channels, and that basically allowed us to do some things with priority that we couldn't do before. So, we do a lot of 3D ambience, and I think that really separates us from most other studios as far as audio goes, is we put sound on everything. Every single tree in the map has its own unique sound in 3D space when you pass by it, and we even populate it with birds. If we see like a barrel sitting in an alleyway, we'll put little mice sounds only there.
Right.
We do a lot of coverage and stuff like that. And when we hit World at War, we had, our sound programmers, Stephen McCall and Blair, add stuff so that we could actually, do more things like that. So we can have all these little ear candy things going on, especially if you're wearing headphones.
And I guess like some examples of those would have been like in Verrückt, you've got the people crying in the corridors and it's all spooky, and I mean, that map, man.
Right.
Oh.
And, a lot of, some of that stuff in Verrückt, because Verrückt was based on one of the single-player maps in World at War.
Yeah.
One of the Berlin maps. I forget the ship name. It was called Berlin 1.
Right. In MP, it was Asylum, right?
Okay, yeah, right. Exactly. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So that was one of our favorite maps because, we could do creepy stuff like that. And it's things like that, like especially the audio team really likes to get into and just imagine like what's the weirdest thing that we can put in there, and we put on headphones and run around, and it's like, well, what makes you want to take the headphones off and kind of look behind you, that kind of feel.
And I mean, it's interesting as well because the sound team have actually kind of been the genesis of the story in a lot of ways, certainly going back to the old stuff, and so exactly that kind of process of thinking what is going on here kind of ended up being the foundation of the Zombies story. So
it was like back then, it was like the entire building was like in the same hive mind where, and the audio team was definitely into it. We loved it. We'd stay late just to think of ideas, and, we were excited to work on it. But I mean, every team was. The art team, animation, all of them were just, not really going rogue, but everyone was thinking of these little things to put in there, and then it would, someone would riff off that, and we'd see some cool animation or some weird poster from art that we didn't know was there. And like, oh, we should make some audio story behind that. And it just kept feeding off of itself.
So what sort of limitations did you have in terms of the technology back then that now in Chronicles, or even just throughout Black Ops 3, like you've had much more freedom to kind of push boundaries and stuff?
Yeah, well, that changed every single game since then. That was actually, remind me to come back to it, a challenge of, I guess, porting Chronicles. But some of the limitations back then was obviously memory is the biggest one. The old consoles back then, we were pretty limited in our memory, so we had to choose things and down-res things and make things mono that we'd like to have stereo. So we had to really pick and choose how many files we would be playing and, especially at one time, but just load it into the game at all. That was, I mean, I guess limiting. It was par for the course back then for everyone, but, our hopes and dreams were much bigger than our memory limits. As far as playback goes, we actually had a really sophisticated priority system that we've had since even CoD 3.
Wow.
I think that's another great asset of our audio engine that we made ourselves, or our audio programmers made. We have priorities set to each sound, so we can say, limit to 6 plays of this one sound, and once it hits that, what kind of logic do you want to stop? Do you want to stop the last sound? Do you want to prevent the new sound from playing? Or do you want to, stop the oldest sound and play a new one? So we always had control over what was playing at any given time, and then we would give them an actual priority number. So if we deemed gunshots to be a higher priority than footsteps, if the channels are out and a gunshot's going to play and a footstep's going to play, it won't play the footstep and allow a gunshot to. And obviously, over thousands and thousands of assets that are constantly playing, it's this logic soup that's going on to play what we think needs to be played in a context. The limitation at that point is if what did you say? Like when you step on a certain
might be a bit of wood and it's a certain woody sound and
right. We do a lot of we use what are called step triggers and bump triggers where. If you run into something, we can play a series of assets or sound files that represent what we think you're looking at. If it's a barrel, it might be a sound of hitting a barrel.
The classic example, the Varrooked stairs running into that railing, and it the rattle every time, dude. I'm like, I know exactly where I am right now, 100%.
And a way to make those, the thing that works against you when you don't have enough memory is variance and variety. So if you hear the same exact sounds, like really old video games, like if you go back to Doom or, some of the early games, because of memory, they would only have 2 different files that would play a sound when you step on something. So there's 2 wood sounds. So you'd hear, it would sound, you start to recognize it's the same file playing over, tick, 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 tick. But as more memory comes along and you can fit more files in, you can put 15 variants. So now you don't recognize that the same sound file is playing and it sounds more real. So there's that it was in between those 2 extremes, but going from World at War till now, we're able to put more variants just because of the size of the memory that we have available to us per map.
Yeah, so with Black Ops 3, the scope of the entire game was huge, but then in Chronicles as well, there's so much stuff from the past. It's not like you're just making new assets for this alone, but you're also taking a lot of this stuff that is very dear to a lot of the fan base and bringing it into the future and trying to sort of breathe new life into it. So were there any specific things in the development of Chronicles that you sort of looked at and were able to do things that you maybe imagined in the past but just physically couldn't do before just due to the limitations of the hardware, etc.?
And the whole idea of, I'll just use the word redoing sounds.
Yeah.
And Brian Toohey, our audio director, and Colin Ayers, King Skylark from B2 on Twitter, were the driving force behind really, doing a full upgrade because, we wanted it to, be HD. When you hear remastered, a lot of times it's a pretty subtle difference. It's almost placebo sometimes. But we wanted to make, kind of a new experience without, episode 1ing it. So we,
right.
I don't know. We took the approach of, where were we limited? Zombie sounds for one. Like some of the processing that we can do, the amount of files that we could have in there, we're limiting back on WoW, and now they just weren't, and certainly not in the same way. So we just wanted to kind of update how that sounds, to go along with what our sonic vision was.
Did you find that happened similarly, for example, in like Revelations was one map that I really wanted to kind of just come to in this. Obviously, it's not part of Chronicles, a little bit earlier, but
it's kind of a mini Chronicles if you think about it, because it's got pieces of all the old maps, or some of the old maps in it. So it was kind of a test bed. And here, and I said I wanted to come back to this. There's an interesting challenge with, you can call this a port, and I'm sure people imagine us just, take this old thing that we had sitting around and move it over here, and it's not like that at all, because even the scripting language is different from WoW to Black Ops 1 to Black Ops 2 to Black Ops 3. So you have, variables in the way they work, and everything is totally different. So you're porting 4 different games worth of broken stuff into something new and trying to make it work. So you bring it over and everything's broken. You have to fix it in a different way every time. So we're rewriting script functions, and we moved a lot of the voice stuff out of script into this other thing, and now half of it's there, half of it's not. Some of the lines, the voiceover lines were so, guerrilla style made back in the original that there aren't tracking sheets for them. So we're trying to dig up, and we even have to look online, what did he say there? And oh yeah, and then it helps us find where it is, because it's, hundreds of thousands of voice files, and not everything is tracked. And even when it is tracked, it's not tracked and named in the same way. That was probably the biggest logistical challenge, I guess, to quote unquote porting things from old to new. And then once we had it working, for the first time, we weren't under the gun like we were originally, because Zombies always came at the end with the previous games, which we're working on a main game and Zombies at the same time, and Zombies wasn't priority because we had this giant COD franchise to get out the door. So we couldn't we couldn't just sit there and riff on things, wait a week, think about it, listen to it, and come back. And this time it was just all sandbox fun. The old zombie feeling. It felt like working on Prototype for the first time, or not. It was amazing. The whole vibe was back, and we were just trying to do things that were fun and cool the whole time.
And speaking of the hundreds of thousands of sound files, I know in Revelations there's actually one thing that, in Shi no Numa, for example, you get your characters talking, and there's 10 minutes max. There's 8 minutes, I'm pretty sure, of Takio quotes.
Yeah.
And then you come through to Revelations, and Richtofon's going on for 45 minutes, just warbling away.
Right.
That guy does not stop talking in that map. It's insane.
Yeah.
So Black Ops 3 was sort of building towards Revelations, and then you went another step further with Chronicles, and it's just God damn, dude! You guys are doing a lot here.
Yeah, I think it was Verrupt. We played voices on them, but they were cut from single player and various other places to briefly kind of test sort of exerts and call-outs, but we didn't have a player, the concept of the player voice wasn't even until Black Ops 1, I believe, right?
Yeah, Mason definitely talks in Black Ops
1.
Oh,
yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah.
So that was, the first, official, approved by Activision, we're going to have the player talk, and that was a big deal, because you remember all the CODs before that, you were just a gun following a bunch of other people talking. So, and that obviously translates over to Zombies, and got pushed there by Zombies, because since we had the players talking in Zombies, it kind of said, we have an example, and we have a script system in order to do this, and a way to process it differently, and all that stuff. So Zombies actually drove campaign in that way. We dipped our toe in the water with having the zombie characters talk and have personalities, which came, a little bit later than Shi no Numa. Yeah.
Speaking specifically to Chronicles now, what would you say are the things that people might have kind of noticed but not necessarily twigged as to them being new or refreshed? Because one, I think that stands out to a lot of people straight away, especially if they're playing a map like Moon, for example, is that round change sound, where you go from the sort of the classic old thing to something that's really a fresh sound now. So what was that kind of process like?
Yeah, so that was another thing that Brian Toohey spearheaded, is he wanted to update a lot of the music stuff, because he wrote a lot of the in-game music starting in Black Ops 2, I believe. He started writing a lot of all the little interstitial musics, round stingers, yeah. Even the death songs, when I stopped doing those, got too busy. Yeah, he started making some of those, and we wanted to update stuff. There's ideas that we had for those. But again, back then, it was just seat of our pants. Does this work? Great. Okay, move on. But now we actually had time to look at it and, create flow and, I hate to use a new agey word like synergy, but, you want to have, your round stingers and your interstitial music and the during round stuff all kind of be related to each other. They were all mastered differently, so we had Scott Eckert, who masters a lot of our music and sound effects, do passes on those, and James McCauley, who I've written a couple, co-written Where Are We Going and Dead Flowers with. He has some music in there as well. And again, remastered. He did a lot of the 8-bit stuff. And I think it reminded me, the Moon round, what did we change that to? Was that the
Now it's kind of 8-bitty. It's like...
Oh, yeah.
That's my impression of it.
So, there was a bunch of stuff we had sitting around, too, that was half done that we wanted to finish and put in just because, why not? I love that stuff. Like when I was, looking at something is, seeing, unreleased material brought back.
An example of that would be the keynote intro now. The loading screen has what I believe was like dog round music or something.
Yeah, I was hooking up, and that was another thing, 4 different games worth of material, trying to get them all to work together on new tech and new scripting. I was like, I've got to fill out the loading screens, even for like the newer maps. Like the Black Ops 3 maps didn't have loading screen music, I don't think, which was a bug, and I think my fault. But I fixed it in Chronicles. The Chronicles release. The dog round. That was something I wrote back on World at War, and the song itself was to test out some software. I had some drum software, I think is when I first started using the Line 6 pod farm. I can't remember, but I wanted to test out some guitar patches, and so I'm like, I need to just write like a little, whatever piece, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll use that for the dog round, and we had that for the introduction, but, we obviously shortened it to that stinger, real quick, guitar that Brian processed, and I just left it there, and it ended up in the PC files, which means it ended up in the public.
Yep.
And it's I've never posted it on my channel. I don't know why. Even now that we've officially released it, and I should probably do that. But I want there was never a Kino der Toten load screen music. Do we write something new? Not enough time. So I'm like, the dog round. So because I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard it.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's an example of like an old composition. I'm assuming you fleshed it out a little bit for this and just made it sort of fit in 2017?
No, not really. I literally drag and drop from the old folder into the new game.
Fair enough. But there have been things that you have added compositionally too, right?
Yes, not me. Brian updated a lot of stuff. Like I'd have to list it. I wouldn't be doing it justice if I try to remember it.
Like, how do you go about doing that while keeping the nostalgia there?
Well, a lot of the stuff that he updated is literally that was updates. Like he took old pieces and just, refined some of the instrumentation.
Okay.
Mastered them, or had Scott master them, just wrote some extra stuff, expanded on the idea. Nostalgia really comes from a lot of the most dangerous thing with the zombie sounds, because they're, iconic. So when I said I didn't want to episode 1 stuff, we had to be careful, but we believe that they're updated and they still keep the same inherent feel of what CoD Zombies is. They don't sound like Walking Dead. They don't sound like, other game zombies or the traditional sounding zombies. So they still have that CoD zombie feel to them.
There's even things like you've changed the sound when you knife a zombie. That sounds different. When you get hit, when you go down. There's so much stuff like that is completely new to Chronicles.
Right.
We didn't hear that at all in Black Ops 3. It's completely fresh, but it still sounds like COD Zombies, like you were saying. So, I mean, that's an interesting change as well, all of those.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear from the community, because we definitely felt like something we wanted to improve upon is game feedback. And when you hit a zombie, you want it to just feel it a little more. You want it to sound messy and, fleshy. And when you shoot them, you can hear the bullets hitting them, and it's just a little bit more satisfying. When you go down, we never had anything on that. Because several reasons, back then, to put sound on something like that across the network and not have it screw everything up once you change the round or get revived and all that kind of stuff was really difficult, but now we could. And Sean Jimerson, the sound designer that works with us and does some of the music too, he wanted to take on the reviving, the whole being downed and that stuff, and so he made some new stuff for that. We want to keep it ethereal and mystical, the kind of zombies that we do, because we're not totally traditional zombies where, there's like a disease, like Resident Evil style. We're more of a kind of an in-between, that kind of stuff.
Even amongst that, like I know the first time I went down in Chronicles, I was like, hold on, is someone talking to me right now?
Right.
Like, is that a voice I can hear back there? And I mean, that's a trend that I think you guys have, you've played with that ever since, like, Verrückt. You go back all that way, and you've got the Easter egg from Lost with the numbers, someone reading out the numbers in the power room. Like, that's probably one of the oldest Easter eggs in this, in Zombies in general. And then you come through to now, and in Revelations, you've got like the vase or the urn that kind of seems to be talking to you, and then you've got the Chronicles story trailer where there's potentially some backmasking going on in there, and it seems to be talking to you. And then you get to Chronicles, and there's sound stuff all over the place. I mean, all of the Easter eggs, well, not all of them, okay, but a large number of the Chronicles Easter eggs that were added in new are audio Easter eggs. So all of the Samantha's Dolls eggs that's in every single map, that's basically a sound team Easter egg, right? Because that was introduced in GK.
Yeah, we've always wanted to, up our game when it comes to Easter eggs. And a lot of those Chronicles ones are the brainchild of King Skylark.
Right, Colonnaeus.
He implemented a bunch of those. He loves that. He has a big passion for zombies. I mean, there could be lots of them. I will neither confirm or deny. I will neither confirm or deny that they've all been found or not.
Oh, okay. Awesome. There's also like a kind of change to the ambience of some of these maps and the kind of creep factor.
Right.
What sort of decisions were being made there?
Yeah, when Brian was thinking about the creative direction for how we were going to reboot stuff, creep factor was the number one goal. Okay. Everything that we make needs to add to that. If it doesn't add to that, it doesn't go in. And a lot of you probably really notice it if you play with headphones and sound effects and you don't have your teammates screaming in your ears, if you're alone. You're going to really hear some of the new stuff that we have in there, and some of it is very, very subtle and might have some messages in there. But we just took a long time to just really figure out psychologically how certain sounds would affect you, especially in headphones, because you can actually give the feeling of being somewhere if you do it right. And we took ambiences for all the maps in there and redid them or updated them so that they do that. So even if it's the same wind sound, we've processed them in a way that it will actually do something to your brain through your inner ear.
Right. Only at Treyarch, everyone. And a really good example of that would be the knocking door in Kino. That thing, even though it's like, it's just someone knocking on the door, but then the fact that there's like the kind of murmuring back there, not the Easter egg where you do the actual doll, the other door, the kind of murmuring, and then the guy gets like overran or whatever, and it's just like, this is just spooky material, man.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think that's in there. I think that's just you.
God damn it. I've been playing zombies way too long, man. I'm starting to hear voices where there aren't any. I must have touched the MPD by accident. Like, something's been going on, clearly.
Another thing that we actually did, one of the major features we've added over several games is the ability to attach sounds to particles and FX in the game. And our FX team is awesome. Barry Whitney and Robert Moffat and all the guys back in the FX team. And, like the stabs in Origins, they have like the fire, the different elements, you'll see little particles that have been updated.
Yeah, they're like hissing and fizzing and all sorts of stuff.
And so we have the ability to attach them and have the sounds follow every little particle. So we have a bunch of new stuff on there for all the different attacks and modes of the stabs. And our guy, one of our sound designers, Lee Staples, did a lot of work on that and updated a bunch of reloads and player animations with zombies that, kind of give you the Foley impact of being a heavy, dangerous player. He did a lot of that work.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, obviously we've talked about sound here because
I'm one of the senior sound designers.
Right, that's the one, yeah. It's worth just sort of noting that there's obviously a huge number more of people that I could be talking to right now about their own little kind of aspect of Chronicles, because you guys really seem to have updated everything.
Yeah.
Like, everything has been really brought forward in a really significant way as well. Like, it's not just like a little tweak here and there. Like, those maps look fresh as hell, and they sound fresh as hell, and they play really well, and it's great.
Yeah, everything. Everyone was into it. Like I said, it was like, Noctur and Toten again, where we're just, everyone, the whole studio just had this vibe about it, and we were all excited to do it. And it was cool because, once we got everything working, we could finally do like a team-wide post-effects pass is basically what it was, that we never got to do, and we've had, 8-10 years to think about. If only we had time, we would do this, and this is the opportunity to actually do that. And like I said, we didn't want to ruin anything that was, what people loved, and that we loved too. But I think we pulled it off in a good way. And, a lot of what audio does has to do with what it looks like. We need to make it sound like what it looks like, what you expect to hear. And so the art teams and gameplay side and effects and animations, it all went all out. A lot of the animations are new in there too. So we had to redo a bunch of weapon animations that are much better looking now. And so we made new passes on those, and, you know, even all the little grenades and special weapons all have some tweaked animation, so they have new sound because of that.
Right, okay, yeah, I guess like the timing and stuff as well. Like as soon as an animation changes, even just a little bit, you guys need to rework the way that you've done the sound for it and stuff. So
yeah,
it's all kind of moving parts that work together.
That's right.
Any sort of interesting anecdotes or stories from the development process that you think would be fun to share, whether it was from the very beginnings of when you were starting to work on it or right at the end, like anything?
Well, I apologize, everyone, for making fire sale so loud. We got that fixed. That was my fault.
The context on that was that a lot of people were getting copyright claims for the fire sale audio when it came out, and yeah, can we get a blame Kevin in the chat?
Yeah, I can do that. It's fine. I deserve it. I was actually trying to fix a problem where it was, you know, we didn't have fire sale in the older maps because it wasn't around then, so we had to translate it. Well, I had to translate it over to, you know, like Cosmodrome. And the map was much bigger and the positions of the boxes were different. And I thought I had it fixed, but I think I made a mistake somewhere along the line and didn't catch it till afterwards, but since been fixed. Apologies all around.
Oh, actually, one thing I should quickly ask you about.
Sure.
One of the things that Jason mentioned in an interview he did with Noah recently was that there were sounds from the old maps that were kind of bleeding into the Chronicles maps, and that was a bug that has since been removed. Can you talk at all about which sounds actually got removed and like what they were doing there and like what the situation was?
Well, I mean, you know, in some cases, like voiceover lines, we didn't have weapon-specific or wall or box-specific voiceovers in some of the older maps, but then our new VO system is applied to all the maps, so we would get these lines that didn't make sense in context back in the old maps. You know, like I'm going to buy, you know, talk about some weapon that's on the wall, but it's in a category wall buy, but the old map doesn't have that weapon. So then you would have conflict. It was just a matter of, you know, the Matrix generating a line that didn't apply to something old.
That's interesting because like a lot of the examples of it were like you'd buy Gobblegum on Origins or something, and you'd get a quote that was a Gobblegum quote, but it was obviously not meant to be that Gobblegum quote because it would be like out of sync with the time and stuff.
Yeah, you know, when it was developed, we didn't predict all these systems. I mean, we developed these systems over time, you know, like, let's try this. And like, wouldn't it be cool if he talked about the shotgun when he bought it off the wall? But then, you know, that formula, you know, instantly becomes a formula once it goes into script, in script. And so when we go on to newer maps, that formula is still running and doing what it's supposed to do, but the context we couldn't have predicted at the time, so we have to kind of rely on our QA to check things out, or the, you know, Reddit.
Yeah.
We get that stuff fixed up pretty well. It's just these variables that you can't predict that are always going to happen, and that was one of them.
So, I think that's probably a good place to wrap things up. This has been Kevin Sherwood, or K Sherwood Ops is the YouTube channel, and he's got all of his audio on there. Well, not all of it, because that would be 100,000 videos or more, but he's got a lot of the zombie songs that he's written over the years, or has co-written with other members in the team, etc. That's all on his channel, so that'll be linked down below. And yeah, in the comments, guys, let me know if you'd like me to try and do this with someone else from the team, or just anything at all, because I really enjoy trying to kind of bring Treyarch to YouTube a little bit more. So yeah, let me know. Kevin, any closing thoughts?
No. Check out Chronicles.
Awesome. Yeah, hell yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Drop a like if you've enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Later.